Hi everyone, welcome to Crafting with KGF Designs. Today we will learn how to make large vinyl decor for wood signs, canvas, or whatever large material you have to make signs. Also, throughout the video, I will give away 7 tips for a great vinyl sign using cricut. If you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. Alright, let's begin. Before you go into the sign space, you need to do 3 things. Know the dimensions of your sign, know how the image will lay in your sign, know if you want to include borders. For this, you need to leave some space between the edge of the sign and the image for borders. Borders can be of wood or of the vinyl in which your image will be cut. You also need to think if you want to have space between the borders and the image. If you already know those 3 things, then you can skip this step. If not, continue on as I will show you how I prep the sign area to lay the image. With a measuring tape, measure the width and the height of your sign. Take note of the measurements as you will need this information for the image. At this stage, you will need to decide if you want to stain your sign or paint it or seal it with Mod Podge. Prepping your sign this way can help with adherence of the vinyl to make sure it dries thoroughly. Then with a pencil, draw a vertical and horizontal line in the middle of your sign. These are guides for when you transfer your image to your sign. There are a couple of ways to lay out the image on your sign. You can have your image lay right at the edge of your sign, covering the entire surface of your sign. This method is best used for images that are the same shape of the sign, like the art I have in here. You can also offset the image to the middle, top left, top right, bottom right, top left, and so on. You get the idea. This method is best for images that will not cover the entire surface of your sign. For example, if you want the image that is the same shape of your sign to be smaller, or the image is not the same shape as the sign. If the image is not the same shape as your sign, usually you will want to align the image right in the middle of your sign, just like the Merry Christmas picture I have here. If you want to include borders, you will need to leave some space between the edge of the sign and the image. The space will need to be the same thickness of the border you are planning to include, just as you see here in the turquoise color. You also need to think if you want to leave the image right on the edge of the border, like the picture on the left, or have space between the border and the image shown in the picture on the right. Make sure you measure and take note of that since you will be using these allowances in design space. Also, mark the position of the border with a pencil on your sign like I have pointed here in yellow. Now that you have all that down, let's go to design space and Cricut. Okay, we are here in the sign space. I am using plywood for the surface of my sign. I have purchased plywood that measure 4 by 8 from my local home improvement store, and I asked them to cut 4 2 by 2s and 2 2 by 4s. I decided that my sign will be 2 feet by 2 feet and it will not have any borders. Here I am going to show you how I slice the image to fit the entire surface of the sign using an image that is the same shape as the sign. Since the surface of my sign is square, the image will also need to be square. I am also going to show you how to slice an image that is not the same shape as the surface of my sign and what I need to do to make sure that the image is centered when transferring. I already know what image I want to use for my first sign, so let's go ahead and click Upload. This image is actually part of a font called Free Tiles that I have downloaded from font.com. Okay, here's tip number 1. I use the character map application to view all of my font to help me decide which font or art I would like to use in a project ahead of time. This saves me time from scrolling down the fonts in my system in Design Space. And here's tip number 2. The great thing about using the Character Map app is that I can save the font as an SVG or PNG image. Just make sure you read the README files when you download the font. This font specifically says that it's 100% free, but always check with the creator for commercial purposes. Now that I have uploaded my image, I am going to resize it to make So the image will be 23.5 by 23.5 inches. So go up to size and unlock the size so you can type the size you want. Since this is a large project, you can adjust the view by zooming out to about 25%. So let's do that. For this project, I will use my 12 by 24 inches mat. As you can see, the size of my signs is 24 inches instead of 23.5 inches. The surfaces don't match. Well, I would rather have a quarter of an inch of space on each side of the sign surface. Here, let me show you how this will look. Let me add a square shape and resize it to 24 by 24 inches. And I'm going to change the color of this so you will know that that is the surface of the sign. Then I am going to select both of the images, the shape and the image, and align them to the center. Click Align, Center. I'm going to send the surface of my sign to back. Click Arrange and Send to back. As you can see, this is hardly noticeable. This way, I will have to slice a quarter of an inch on each side of the image to cover the entire surface of the sign, since Cricut cutting measurements are 11 by 5 and 23.5 inches. If you see the right hand side, you have an icon over here that tells you that the mat is too big and you will need to reduce the size. So that's why we needed to change the measurements to 23.5, and then I'll show you how to slice this. So here is tip number 3. To help with the transfer, use a pencil to draw a line that is a quarter of an inch from the edge of the surface of the sign to help you align the image for transfer. Let me just zoom in. So you want to mark or draw a line at the edge of the surface of the sign so you will know where to put your image. Okay, so I am going to use the shape to do the slice. First, I need to resize the shape to 11.5 by 23.5. And I am going to copy it twice. Click on the shape, press Ctrl C and Ctrl V, and now you have two shapes. So how do I know that I need to make two of these shapes? Well, if I divide 23.5 inches by 11.5, that gives me roughly a little more than 2 cuts. So therefore, I need 2 shapes that measure 11.5 wide so I can slice the image. Let me show you what I mean. Let's align the first shape to the top left. I do this by selecting the image and the shape together. Click Align, Align Left, and again, click Align, Align Top. Now, click on Slice. When you slice, Cricut makes additional images. Let's separate the image so you will know what I mean. This is the original image. And here are the slice image. This one is filled inside. And this one is empty inside. It's truly your choice or your preference. So here's tip number 4. It really doesn't matter what you choose because you can weave out the background to transfer, either to transfer the fill image or weave out the filled image to transfer the background. The difference is that you may need to cut the vinyl at some intersection points, but I highly suggest that you stick to one for each slice you make so that your image will align. In this case, I will choose the image that is empty, as that is my original image, and I will delete the rest of the slice images. The second image, Cricut is telling us that it's still too big, so we need to slice the image again. Let's go ahead and do that. Select the second image and shape, align to top left and slice. If you find that you have residue in your slice, I suggest that you go back and select the original image. So now we have done 2 slices for 3 cuts in Cricut. Here are our slice images. Here is the leftover image. Here is my original image. And here is the slice image. I do not need the slice image, so I am going to delete those. Now, if you look at the right, Cricut's still telling me that my image is still too big. So what I can do is I'm just going to click on the image and I am going to go into my down arrow in my size box. I'm going to go into the width and I'm going to just click once to minimize the size and then go back up and click once to increase the size. And you see that solves the problem. Now I'm going to click on my second image and I'm going to do the same thing. Go to size and adjust the width by clicking down one time to reduce the size and then clicking up one time to increase the size. And that's it. We just done 2 slices for 3 cuts. You can see the last cut is very small. You will not be needing a 12-inch wide vinyl to cut this. You can still use the 12-inch vinyl, but you can trim off a good amount so you can use that leftover vinyl for another project. So now that we are done with this, let's hide it and insert an image that is not the same shape as the sign. I am going to upload this Christmas truck. I found this image on zipparties.com. And the creator is Chris Harmon. So I just clicked on the picture and saved it for my personal use. You can also find great images for free by going to freesvgdesigns.com, and that's where I got other Christmas images like Joy to the World. I also found a free nativity image in Clipart Library. I can put the links to the images in the description. So for the truck, the same concept applies for images that are not the same shape as the sign. You can see this one still has the square sign, but it's not going all the way up to the border of the shape. So therefore, I say that it's not the same shape. So let's add a square shape and size it to 24 by 24 and see how we can adjust this image. Let's send this image to back. Go to Arrange, Send to Back, and let's change the color. Now let's center the image. As you can see, we definitely need to adjust the size of the truck. The truck will need to be small enough to have even spaces between the edge of the sign and the image. And now let's just play around with the measurements of the truck. Select all again. I think the picture needs to be a little bit smaller. Okay, I think I'm happy with the size of the picture. So now let's click Slice. Just make sure you have the shape and the truck or your image highlighted. So this time I will select a square in which the image is empty to do my slices. I do this so that my image will be intact when I do my transfer, since it is already lined up in the mat with the spaces around the image. Later in the video I will explain how I line up my transfer paper, so stay tuned. I am going to separate the images. I'm going to be using the square with the empty in the inside, and I'm going to delete the rest. Now, this image is 24 by 24. We will need to adjust the size since Cricut is telling us that we won't be able to cut it. So let's adjust the size to 23.5 by 23.5. Now to guide your transfer, you will also need to draw lines with a pencil 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the sign. So that way you will be able to align the image to your sign. So now we're ready to slice. Let's insert a square shape and resize it to 11.5 by 23.5 and change the background color to a different color. Let's send the shape to back. And now we need to align it. Select the shape and the image and align it to top left and then click Slice. Remember, it is crucial that the first slice is aligned since this will be your transfer guide from the left to the right. So here it is, tip number 5. If you have larger areas, you can start transferring your image starting in the middle center. Okay, now let's go ahead and delete the images that we're not going to be using. And we're going to repeat the process for the leftover image. So here is my second image. Let's delete the images that we're not going to be using. And here is my leftover image. Since this has nothing to do with the picture itself, I can go ahead and delete it. Unless if you are weaving out the inside to fill out the background on your sign, then you might need to keep this little piece. But since I am just going to be weaving out the background and not the inside, then I am not going to need this little piece. So I'm going to delete it. There you go. Tip number 6. If a cricut is telling you that something doesn't fit after you have sliced based on the measurements that cricut is telling you to do, then go to the size and adjust the width by clicking the down arrow once to minimize the size and then clicking the up arrow once to increase the size again. For example, here cricut is telling me that my image will not fit. I will need to adjust this. Click one time down, then click one time up. And there you go. Now I am ready to send to cut. And here is my final tip number 7. For transfer, I leave the vinyl intact in my Cricut mat, as that will help me line up the transfer paper. But first, I trim the vinyl that I can use for another project with an X-Acto knife, and then I weave out what I don't need. I cut the transfer paper to be the same size as the mat, and then align transfer paper starting to the top left to the top right, and work my way down the mat to transfer the vinyl. If you would like to see how I prepare the surface of my sign and how I do vinyl transfer, check out my next video on how to make a wooden sign using vinyl. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you have any questions, leave a comment. Happy crafting!